This is the new Biotar 58mm F1.5 made by Meyer Optik Gorlitz, a lens that has been greatly improved in terms of light transmission, sharpness and contrast from the original Biotar 58mm F2 designed by Zeiss in 1930, while keeping the wonderful character of the original lens design. I've been using this lens for almost a month and I'm absolutely loving the results I'm getting with it. At the point that for my last trip in Sicily, I decided to bring only this lens with my Lumix S5. This is a totally manual focus lens without CPU contacts, so I suggest you to get the DSLR mount version of this lens so you can adapt it to every mirrorless or cinema camera you have or you will have in the future. And if you don't want to deal with the lens adapter, anyway, Meyer Optik is also selling the lenses with a native mirrorless mount adapter. But I will say get the DSLR version because it's gonna be more future-proof in case you're gonna swap cameras. The build construction and look of this lens is absolutely fantastic. I love the new silver finish of this lens, and the focus ring and aperture ring are buttery smooth without clicks in the aperture ring, and the barrel doesn't really extend much when you focus in and out. This lens is not weather sealed, there is not a weather sealing gasket around the lens mount, but I've been using this lens both while sailing or hiking, so in pretty bad environments and I don't see any dust particles or sign of mold or humidity inside the lens. But if in the future I will see that this lack of weather sealing is gonna give problems to this lens, I will write an update in the description of the video, so maybe in the future keep an eye in what I write in the description. This lens weighs 405 grams, it has an image circle diameter of 44mm, it has a battery smooth focus ring with a focus trough of 180 degrees, it can focus as close as 0.7 meters and it takes 52mm filters. Thanks to the fast f1.5 aperture of this new version of the Biotar, the swirly bokeh that I used to see in the past reached another level. If you focus your subject between 70 cm and 2 meters, this lens can create very interesting portraits with an awesome swirly bokeh. This is a very strong and unique look that you can give to your portrait photos, but if you need something more neutral, you can simply stop down the lens to reduce this effect. And if you don't like stopping down signs in the bokeh ball, this lens has 14 declicked aperture blades that are almost always providing a circular bokeh, except maybe around f5.6 and f8, where you can see some little edges around the bokeh balls, in a way that looks a little bit like Ninja Star's bokeh, but it's really not that visible. Another cool feature of this lens is when you take landscape photos wide open at f1.5 or f2, focusing at infinity. The sense of depth that you will introduce in your photos is something incredible. It almost looks like you are taking photos with a medium format camera with a really fast lens. It's something that I absolutely love about it. Talking about sharpness, this lens is perfectly sharp at f1.5 in the center of the frame with average contrast, and in the medium region of the frame it is a little bit soft and the corners are considerably soft. At f2 I consider the center sharpness and contrast perfect, and the medium region of the frame starts to look acceptable. I find that the sweet spot of this lens is around f2.8, but if you need a uniform sharpness in your frame, you will need to stop down this lens to f8 or f11. The vignetting and distortion are pretty strong at f1.5, and you will need to stop down the lens to f5.6 to reduce the amount of vignetting, while for the distortion, if you stop down the lens, the distortion is not really going away. The quality of the bokeh is very good and progressive, the longitudinal chromatic aberrations are very well controlled, and the lens has some breathing when you rack focus. Talking about color rendering and contrast level, they are always great. This lens has a bit of a cooler look, so you will have to adjust your white balance according to this aspect. So for example, if you are taking photos during daylight at 5600 Kelvin, you will probably have to set your white balance at 6200 Kelvin to have a correct white balance. And keep talking about the characteristic of the coating. This lens is controlling flares very well, but if the light source is hitting your lens from the side or from the corners, you will see some funky rainbow flares entering in your frame. Now, why I say that I absolutely love the rendering of the images of this lens. This lens is different than the normal Biotar 58mm F2 or the Helios 44-2 that you may have tried or you have in your kit, because this lens, let's say, it's better. It has much better coating, it's much sharper, it's clearer, the color separation and color tonalities are very well defined. It's not like the Helios or the Biotar where the colors are just melted together. So I never really like to use those lenses except for some cheap productions or if I want to use it for anamorphic scopes, because I didn't care if I would have break those lenses. But this lens is different. This lens has, I would say, it has a professional look. It's about the contrast level, it's about the color rendition. So it is a serious lens. So I think it's worth the money, and I don't say that it's a must-have for all of you. It's a lens that is designed for people that know what they want. And if you want a lens with very strong character that can really create art in a different way than perfect pictures, I think this is a lens that you have to consider, because it's very, very interesting. And if you're wondering if this is a better lens than the Primoplan 58mm F1.5, they are totally different lenses. This is, let's say, sharper, it's with more swirl, it has more barrel distortion, while the Primoplan 58 F1.5 has some glow, it's rendering the bokeh in a very unique way, it has less swirl, so they are totally different lenses. I've shared many test footage and many image samples in the channel, both for this lens and the other one, so you should check them and decide yourself which one is better for you. Talking about adapting this lens with anamorphic setups, when I use the Isco Ultra Star 2x anamorphic scope with this lens is covering almost the 3x2 open gate full frame sensor of my Lumix S1. The lens is a bit long, so that's why I think there is some vignetting that you can notice more than a normal 50mm pancake lens. The sharpness is pretty good already at f1.5, but it will perform better at f2 or f2.8. The lens flares are subtle with a hint of rainbow color, and overall I love to use this lens with my anamorphic scope. In the upcoming weeks I will publish more test footage filmed with this lens, so consider subscribing if you don't wanna miss future videos about this lens or any other cool lenses. So this is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.